Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, baseball fans. Welcome back to the Barstool Baseball Show. It is Carl, and I am joined by Clemmer and Castellani, and we are coming off of our first trade deadline together. The stream was outstanding. If you guys want to catch the full stream, it's on our YouTube page. We just did almost 2.5 hours together breaking down all the trade deadline news. Loaded live panel, loaded live stream. Go check that out. We are doing a short recap podcast here, talk about winners and losers, and kind of break down things at a high level. So I guess we'll just start there. If you guys want to score this scale of 1 to 10, Clemmer, I'll let you go.
Like scoring how bad teams did from 1 to 10 scale, or good they did, 10 being the best, 1 being
like
worst.
The trade deadline as a whole.
The trade deadline as a whole, no. I give it like a 4, 3.5 to a 4. I felt like, especially yesterday, people hearing this, was a little weak. We had the Verlander move, which is pretty big, but other than that, it was not a lot. I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez obviously doesn't go anywhere. Dylan Cease doesn't go anywhere. I would have liked to see more of those big moves happen. My biggest winner for the trade deadline, I'm gonna do my little hometown bias here and say it's my New York Mets. This season was a complete disaster. It's been awful, but they had the courage, unlike the Yankees, to go and pivot. And they knew what to do, when to do it, and that's because Uncle Steve Cohen is the greatest owner in sports, and he bankrolled the Mets to be able to make these moves. If this is Wilpon, we would have been stuck. We wouldn't have had Verlander and Scherzer, but we would have been stuck with whatever. Imagine the sea level, or the Josh Lucas to your Matt Damon, if you will, versions of those guys, and we would have been in a bad spot. Instead, we ended up getting, I believe, if my count is right, we now have 9 new prospects in our top 30 that weren't there a month ago.
Well, that's actually huge news. That's a part of what the Mets have tried to do, is say we're going to spend at the top of free agency, but we have to rebuild strategically so we can get league minimums and arbitration years into the lineup, which is something when they had Pete Alonso and he was just getting into arbitration, and you had Jeff McNeil and Nimmo wasn't a free agent yet. It kind of looked good, and now as you're sizing it up for the next wave, you have to get those bodies in the door, the Brett Beatties and the Frankie Alvarez's of the world. So Matt's big winner. I mean, I don't even want to ask Castellani. I do want to tell him the big loser was Chris Castellani on this show. The big loser today was Chris Castellani, because we thought Eduardo Rodriguez would get moved today. And especially once the Tigers found out his family in the East Coast.
Once Lorenzen got traded, then I'm like, oh, Eduardo's definitely going to go. Like, that was my idea. I'm like, all right, they're not going for it. They're always taking that back. You think maybe, no, they traded Lorenzen, then what happens, Chris?
Nothing happened, Clemmer. There are people on the internet who think that I am unjustified in my criticism of the Detroit Tigers when I have been doing videos after every game for 7 years. And I don't know, truly, outside of being 1-0, I don't believe I've ever talked about a team that is above 500 in any capacity. No, that's not true. They were 8-4 in 2019 and then proceeded to lose 114 games. So that was a magic couple weeks, guys. It really was. It really was. Jordy Mercer was batting cleanup. I still stay awake thinking about those positive memories. No, this is it's an embarrassing moment to me. I think it's the first real blight on Scott Harris's resume as the president of baseball ops. They got to try to pivot here, but the fans are upset. They should be upset. You planned basically your entire season around this deadline. You got great baseball out of Eduardo Rodriguez. Baseball you never thought you'd get. I mean, a year ago at this time, he wasn't on the team. So, and I mean that in the sense he took a 2-month sabbatical and nobody knew where he was. He's back now. Clearly, in the last year, he's grown so attached to Detroit that he doesn't want to go anywhere. So, the city must have a lot of beautiful things to offer. So, hopefully, which clearly means, I guess, he's not going to opt out of his deal. I mean, if he loves it that much. So, I'm clearly frustrated. As far as ranking it, though, the deadline, I have it a little bit above a 4, because I do find the Verlander to Houston story to be incredible, like a juicy steak. I just think that not only is that a big kill shot by the Astros, I just view it as a bizarre piece of baseball history. And we were talking about on the stream that I can't recall an instance in which a player had a ton of success for an organization, right? Goes to free agency, signs with another team, and then after getting essentially a cup of coffee with that team, goes back to the team that was just that he was just with, the team that did try to sign him in the offseason. So I give it like a 5.5 because of that. I find that one to be really fascinating. But beyond that, I I think there's a lot of teams that have had good years that could have really gone for a huge, really gone for the gusto that didn't. They maybe got a little bit better, but as a whole, it is kind of a meh 5 out of 10 trade deadline.
Yeah. The Verlander deal today, obviously huge. Scherzer and Montgomery ending up in the Rangers. Huge stuff going on in the AL West. The Angels refusing to trade Ohtani, then adding Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez, CJ Cron, Randall Grichuk, only to be upstaged by the two teams ahead of them in the AL West with their trade deadline moves.
Well,
I thought today was a lower score. Today would be a lower score heading into the deadline, but the overall moves I really liked. I'd give it like a 6.5. Just a general, there's a lot of buyers here. I like what the Marlins did. I think the Brewers did something smart. I'm very upset with the Orioles. I'm very upset with the Reds. I know the Orioles added Jack Flaherty. Some of the things I would have liked to see happen did not happen. I hate when the Yankees don't do anything at a trade deadline except Kenyon fucking whoever his name is.
Kenyon Middleton.
So some good things, some bad things.
The Angels did make a big move at the deadline today. They got Dominic Leone from the Mets, a horrible reliever. So the Angels, once again, just falling over themselves. Chris, I don't want to rub your face in dog.
Well, I have at it.
Stepped in. But, look at the Mets who had Verlander. You had a pitcher that had a full no-trade clause, and they were able to find a home for him. The thing with Eduardo, this is where I don't know if I remember this happening. He only had 10 teams you couldn't go to. So you had 19 other options. It wasn't like he had a full... I understand if you have a full no-trade, maybe you negotiate with the team, then you go back to the player. The part that makes me so, I'm just speechless here is that if I'm the Tigers, I'm only talking to those 19 teams first, and it's not like Eduardo Rodriguez is out of suitor. He's a very good pitcher, and a lot of teams need pitching. Why not find a room for him in the East Coast? Baltimore's the East Coast. I'm guessing he's not on their no trade. Cincinnati's not on the East Coast. I'm guessing he's in a no trade. Why even negotiate with a team in California? I'm guessing it's Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks on that list.
Yes. We knew since before opening day that this team's intention was going to be to sell, unless there was some sort of 2006 magic where everything just went right. So it is remarkable that in April or May, June or July, or 1 p.m. today, they didn't go to Erod and say, hey, man, we're thinking about shipping you to the Dodgers. And it, truly, and I'm going to make a video about it at some point here in a second. Here's what frustrates me is that if the Tigers would have said, we're going to see what the market has in store, we'll trade them if the package is there, we might not. I would have said, okay, that's fair. That's a plan. Go with the high asking price. I get it. They made it known clearly. 24 hours ago, Bob Nightingale, and sometimes his hit rate isn't always great, he tweeted the Tigers are definitely trading Michael Lorenzen and Eduardo Rodriguez. They definitely traded Lorenzen, right? They got back a whatever middle infielder who might end up being fine. So clearly the intent was he's gone. So I don't want to hear on the broadcast tonight the Tigers saying, oh, we're really happy he's back in Detroit. The market wasn't there. Clearly it was. Clearly you wanted him gone. Clearly you believe that it was better for the long-term benefit of the organization for him not to be here. Don't try to sugarcoat this. It's a bad look. Just say it. I would have more respect for the organization if they just say it. So I'm with you completely. It is baffling to me that there's no plan B, C, or D here after the Dodgers. And once again, they waited to the last possible second and were unable to pivot. And I honestly, the fans are going to want to know this. I never, ever, ever want to find out what the package was from the Dodgers.
Oh, you will. You'll find out.
I know I will. And I'm sure it's, it was, the whatever the equivalent of Walker Buehler 2.0 of, whatever Cody Bellinger 2.0 is probably all in there. But we'll find out at some point. But yeah, just maddening day.
Okay. So my next question is, how badly did the Orioles and Reds fuck this up? For me, I think the Orioles are way, fucked it up way more than the Rays. I think the Rays standing pat to me is fine. Added Samuel, Mies, that's whatever. Orioles only getting Flaherty is a half measure. And like I said on the show, half measure is we learned from Breaking Bad are never a good thing. They should have went out and gotten that Dylan Cease or Eduardo Rodriguez or somebody else. What do you guys think?
They gave up 2 top 20 prospects in the 15 to 20 range in their system, the Orioles did for Jack Flaherty. And we've talked repeatedly, they have the room to spend more, to get more, to make the season count. And when you look at the AL East, it's going to go down in history for being the best division in baseball history. The Yankees aren't even doing shit in their 5 games over 500. And the fact that the Orioles didn't do this is tragic and heartbreaking. What bothers me about the Reds is that the Reds were a 100-loss team last year. It's that close and tangible and palpable to them and the fan base. And now Great American Ballpark's packed. You can win a division. You can host an NLDS. And they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. They just say Mole's fine. Or does that tell you Andrew Abbott is really that good? Nick Lodolo's good enough. Graham Ashcraft's good enough. They can believe it, but as outsiders, we're like, come on, throw me a little more. So I see it as split. I do like your point, though, that the Orioles took a half measure. At least the Reds didn't fucking give anything up. They can still trade Jonathan India in the offseason. They can still do a ton of stuff with, they're not limited in their bad moves here. Castellani, who is one worse than the other, though, to you?
To me, Baltimore is substantially worse because I think that in many ways the Reds are playing with house money right now. No one expected them to have this kind of year. We've talked about it many times. I still think, even with the moves they didn't make, that they can win that division. And even if they don't, they go into the offseason looking at a 84-win team that could make some moves, potentially add. They're going to get Hunter Green back in August. So would I like to have seen them add a starting pitcher? I would have, but I understand the principle behind it. I still think they can make the playoffs. And I understand how they might view themselves as potentially being 1 year away. The Orioles, next year should be now for the Baltimore Orioles. They have done so many things right this year. They have an incredibly young, talented, and healthy core. There is no fucking guarantee that next year all of these guys are going to be at 100% like they are right now. I know Mullins has been injured, but the heart of that, the really young guys that came up through the system are healthy and ready to go. The one issue that we've looked at all year that has been glaring has been starting pitching, and there is always starting pitching available at the deadline. To me, and I feel bad that I kind of predicted this a while back, I think that their ceiling as a ball club lowered today. I've been saying for months, this team can make a run. They can win the pennant. They could even be the last team standing and win the World Series. When I said that under the assumption that they were going to add something at the deadline. Flaherty does not move the needle. Does it make them a little bit better? It makes the rotation a tad better, sure. But we talked about it on the live stream. There's a difference between rotations that can get you through a 162 and rotations that line up well in October. The Astros are going to be throwing out Verlander, Frommer, Hunter Brown, and Christian Javier, maybe even JP France, the way he's pitching. And you're looking at a rotation on the other end, assuming that that's who they play in the ALCS. That's going to be Kyle Gibson, Bradish, Wells, Grayson Rodriguez, a lot of those guys well beyond their expected innings from this season. So I think that's a remarkable disappointment for the Orioles. I'm not even an Orioles fan, and I feel bad about it because I really do enjoy watching that team. But I think they could look back on this year as a what could have been season, depending on how things go.
This proves how cheap and worthless the Angelos family is. These people are the worst owners around. This is disgusting. The Orioles are on pace for nearly 100 wins. That doesn't happen every year. I don't care how fucking good you are and how much money you have. It's a damn good accomplishment. And for them to go and get Jack Flaherty, got the 1.55 whip, and that's all you walk away from? That is fucking insane. I'm surprised Orioles fans just aren't like screaming. I know that it's been rough for them for so long. They are so excited, and the team is so much fun to watch. But you can still enjoy the team and be mad as fuck at your owners. I know I felt that way as a Mets fan in 2015 with the Wilpons. You can still love your team and hate your owner. And I hope Orioles fans are feeling that right now. Because what scares me the most about this, and also with the Reds not doing anything, is are they going to spend in the offseason? Like, if you're not going to buy now, and I understand not wanting to trade assets. Now, the Reds have Moustakas coming off the books. Votto, who knows if they keep or not, whatever. But are they not going to spend? Are the Orioles really not are going to go into the offseason next year, maybe picking up another like Kyle Gibson type and calling it a day? Because if that's the case, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know.
I'd be afraid that the ownership groups would see the attendance from this year's without having to sell. Like, they could be dumb enough where they see the success they're having and be like, whoa, we do it without having to spend money in free agency.
Good point. I believe in the Reds spending more than I do the Orioles at this point. Because there is some, and they might not have done it the way their fans wanted it to, but they did in recent history spend money on Moustakas, spend money on Castellanos. It's a minute ago now, but they did spend the money on the Votto extension. So I could see them getting something. Maybe it could be something like I know it's early, like a Matt McLean little mini extension there, maybe something to do with LA just throwing it out there. Whereas the Orioles, dude, in my lifetime have the Orioles like...
Yeah, but you remember like the Chris Davis extension?
Oh, okay, yes. Well, that worked out so well.
No, it didn't, but at least they spent the money. But like,
Sure,
did you with those teams in the mid-decade, last decade or early mid-decade, I guess 2012, 2013, to go back that far, 10 years ago, when Duquette was running it, they did go out and get a couple guys here and there. But like at the end of the day, that ownership's different now. The dad is Peter. Sounds like his health is quite poor, and the sons since 2012 have really taken over. They were already kind of running the ship then. Now and now the brothers are fighting. The mom's involved in all. It seems like a mess. They need to sell that team. They need to sell that team 2 years ago. This is atrocious. And when you're a baseball owner, you're a steward of the franchise. That's something that the city owns, not you. I know you own it, but like that's the city's franchise. And when you just punt these seasons away, you're punting away memories for millions of people. And I hope the Angelos family goes to bed ashamed tonight. I'm sure they don't, but they should. They should go to bed ashamed and disgusted with what they've done. And I'm telling you, if the Reds do this again next year, let's say they're good again next year, and they do the same fucking job where they go get Sam Moll, they should Bob Castellini, is that his name?
Yeah.
Go to bed ashamed. These people should be disgusted with themselves, but they're not. They're all happy. They're all drinking.
Right. No, it's and Chris Ilitch is cut from the same cloth. I mean, it's embarrassing. That's the biggest issue to me that plagues this entire sport is apathetic owners. Look at what the Orioles have built up these last 2 years. It's fucking incredible. They were so bad. That place is filled every single night. And it's not filled because of the goddamn owner. It's filled because of the front office and filled because of Adley Rutschman and these players that come up through the system. And in that clubhouse right now, they're pissed. You know that they're
they could have traded. Hold on. The front office could have traded for Dylan Cease. I don't think the Angelos family is that involved.
Why?
In the front office. Why would the front office not be in a position to trade for Dylan Cease? You think Peter Angelos is standing there going, no?
2 more years. What has this ownership showed you over the last 7 or 8 years, Carl? They're going to spend any money. They went and got Jack Flaherty, whose contract expires in 2 months.
You can project the Dylan Cease payments. Like, what is...
You can project them. You can afford them.
12 million, 16 million?
Yeah.
They're not made... Their payroll is going to be $60, $70 million.
Yes, Carl. And what Oriole player makes $16 million?
None of them. I know. My point is, then don't they have the room to at least go spend it? Okay, maybe.
Of course they have the room.
I'm talking myself into this fucking... I'm with you guys. I'm talking circles around myself because I can't make sense of it.
I mean, I cannot believe in good faith that a GM as wise and as smart and as brilliant as Elias would allow this to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine he has... I believe his hands are tied, much like Sandy Alderson's hands were tied. And so finally, Wilpon's like, you know what? You can get Cespedes. Here's a little extra money. And remember they wanted to get Carlos Gomez before that. That fell through.
Yeah, they almost did.
But I think Alderson was like, holy shit, I actually have money. Let me spend it before he tells me I don't have it anymore. Where the Orioles ownership has completely just punted the season away.
So you're saying that the Orioles ownership is so cheap and poor that they would say no to a trade that would bring in Dylan Cease because of the 2 arbitration years. And they're just like, we're not adding 12. If the move adds... double-digit $1 million worth of payroll for next year and the years after, like, that's a no-go. And if that's the case, yeah, burn it to the ground. I call the Orioles.
I don't know if that's true or not, Carl. I'm just going by what I've seen. And also, don't forget, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, those guys could have easily been Orioles, probably would have been better fits than even Dylan Cease for that team. And they went to Texas. So, I don't know.
So I think there's a lot of moving parts here. I think to get mad at owners, I think it's good to have frustration with owners because fans want stuff from teams, and us as baseball fans, we want good stewards for the game. Like I'm very passionate about Steve Cohen's rip down and how quick he got back into being like, this isn't working, and we're going to do what it takes to work. Having as much cash as he does certainly helps. But then there's other instances like the Marlins. I thought had a great trade deadline, adding some significant pieces, and it's collective. It's a good thing for the roster. So then do I want to congratulate the owner and say, hey, you were active? I don't know. I think
he didn't spend an extra money.
That's my...
I hear what you're saying, Carl.
I'm trying to draw a little bit of a nuance here to say, like the Angels owners, Eric Moreno's a fuck for not trading Shohei Ohtani. But if we're going to do that to every trade and say the owner is that involved with these.
I think there's a difference between those two teams. You're comparing apples and oranges. So the Marlins are a team with a lot of holes, and especially in the offensive side, obviously, that's pretty clear. And they were able to get those with some cheaper alternatives. That doesn't work in the starting pitching market. like the starting pitcher is just going to cost more money. Like if you have a controlled guy like even Cease, $16 million is a lot of money. Now, even the Marlins, we saw them being kind of like clever with trading Garrett Cooper, who's making a little bit of money, so they can afford to go out and get Josh Bell in a separate deal. So even the Marlins were kind of doing a little bit of a dance to try to save money somewhere because they pretend to be poor as well. So I think it's a little different when you're looking to try to get like elite starting pitching. It's just not going to come cheap.
So we had talked about losers, all right? So obviously we would say the Orioles, we're categorizing them as losers at the trade deadline.
Yep. Absolutely.
Can we put some other teams in there?
The Reds.
Okay, so the Reds are in there comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, they probably maybe shouldn't have done anything. I don't know. Like, I mean, but at the end of the day, though, they are in first place, and they didn't do a single thing except for Sam Moll, which is like, it's not.
Right, and then as far as the NL East is concerned, like the Braves did what the Braves probably thought they needed to do without doing really anything. The Phillies had Michael Lorenzen. That's nice. Is he a number 3 in front of Taijuan Walker?
No, Taijuan Walker is
right. Well, that's my point. It's interesting.
They're about even.
It's just a guy towards the end of the rotation that no one's looking at to win a big game.
Yeah, the Phillies you could point to was a team that maybe, but the Phillies are a weird team where they don't have like obvious holes necessarily. They have like ways to improve. You probably have to fix that team more in the winter than on the fly like this, I think. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, loser-wise, too. Hey, Colorado Rockies could have sold a ton. They got rid of players, but, they don't – it's just like for how bad they are, they move nothing. Royals move nothing.
Rockies – let's talk about the Rockies for a second. They have a 34-year-old catcher just for the All-Star Game MVP. I know if he's the worst All-Star Game MVP ever, but he's still a nice player. You could have gotten for him. And we talked in the show about how they're catching, the Rangers just potentially lost time for the year. You're telling me there isn't a market for a catcher that's a very good starter, and they just sit on him. What are the Rockies going to do with a 34-year-old catcher? What the fuck?
Yeah. Great point.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say
completely directionless. Yeah.
And we're just kind of touching on teams that, kind of move the needle, don't move the needle, aren't really recognized. We didn't talk much about the Giants during our trade deadline show because, they had AJ Pollock, they had Mark Mathias. There's just these small little pieces that go on. We were curious, are the Diamondbacks being smart buyers? It looked like there was a sale for a little bit when they got rid of Chafin to the Brewers.
Yeah, I don't like.
So my point is, a couple teams jump out. We love what the Astros did, love what the Rangers did, mad at the Orioles, mad at the Reds. And then in this mix, in this pool of teams that are, hanging around 500 and being creative, I thought the Marlins did a good job. And I really like what the Brewers did because the Brewers added 3 known commodities that they didn't give up a ton for. They don't cost a ton, and they just fit that kind of boring Brewers mold. As we're kind of sitting here in the mixing, melting pot of the trade deadline, what other clubs do you think?
Can we talk D-backs for a quick second?
Yeah, that was going to be my next one. Go ahead, Clever.
Yeah, so D-backs went out and got Tommy Pham, got Paul Sewald, and then kind of did a Chafin for I forget his name. Sorry, right now. The reliever. They got a closer type, and they got a fourth outfielder type. They need a starting pitcher. You have Gallen, you have Kelly. You need that third guy. They didn't go out and get him. And that's a big L for them. And I understand, I'm guessing, just from reading between the TVs here, I'm guessing Erod's list is the 10 teams in the West, both National League and American League. I'm guessing is how it lines up. So he's not available to them. But they could have went and got Dylan Cease. They could have gone earlier and gotten Scherzer or Verlander. I mean, Verlander's probably going to want to go to Houston, but Scherzer you could have gotten. Or you could have, gotten Montgomery. Somebody else. Instead, they didn't do anything in rotation, and they're really depending so much on Gallen and Kelly. And the way that team's trending, I don't know. I would not be surprised at all the Diamondbacks missed the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that I like the Pham trade. I do think they got better. I just think they didn't. And this sometimes happens at deadlines where teams kind of bolster. Their offense is pretty good, and they made the offense just a little bit better. Where in reality, I think what really needed to come out of this deadline in terms of the Arizona Diamondbacks is they needed to add another starter. I think a Jordan Montgomery type would have been perfect in that rotation because I really I think Gallen is a legit one, and I think Merrill Kelly is a legit number 2. After that, you have basically a rotation full of number 5 starters, just getting that kind of bridge that every 5th day, okay, he'll give us 6 innings, 3 earned, it'll be fine. Type in Montgomery, I think would have been huge for them. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. They do appear to be trending downward, but every time I say that, they'll go to Atlanta, win 2 out of 3. So they're not completely out of it. Do think the offense improved, but considering where they were even a month ago, I would have thought this would have been a team that would have been heavy buyers at the deadline, and they just kind of, it's just kind of so-so.
And at the start of the year, I would have thought the Padres would be heavy buyers at the trade deadline. They had Rich Hill, who made his major league debut in 2005.
3 months younger than me.
No. Yeah.
That's how old he is.
Clip that.
Holy fuck. Well, he's on the Padres now. Padres are 15-10 since July started.
We got to put that out as a poll on the Barstool Baseball Guy. Who do you think is older, Rich Hill?
Chris Clemmer.
Chris Clemmer.
I mean, you guys are the same high school class then, right? What are you, class of 79?
97.
97?
Born in 79, you fuck.
That's what I meant. I meant born in 79.
Can I give a thumbs down to the Dodgers?
Yeah, I think they acquired 4 players. Ahmed Rizzo.
Well, they tried.
Lynn,
They tried.
Joe Kelly, Kike Hernandez, and who was the 5th?
That might be it, right? My big thing is the starting rotation. So they went and got Lance Lynn, who's one of the worst starters in the American League. He has shown flashes, and maybe having that big stadium in LA is exactly what he needs. Yeah. But I was kind of hoping, with all the problems the Dodgers have had from a starting pitching perspective, they were going to add another arm. I was kind of waiting, because even as late as today, they were sniffing around on Verlander. And I'm like, oh, maybe he'll go there. It seems to make the most sense, and they can afford him. But they really kind of stood their ground, which makes me wonder, total conspiracy theory, do they think they have an inside track on Shohei?
They have to.
Oh, easily, yes. I know. That was my theory from day one. Is I think that the Dodgers are content with this Dodgers team just being good, not the dominant force. And then it's because I felt that way in free agency. The only person they spent money on was JD Martinez, and so I'm like, that is a quiet free agent class.
I agree and disagree, Chris.
Okay, what way?
I think we killed it. What happened was, folks, if you listen to this, we went on for 3 hours and it maxed out all of the internet that Michigan has. So Michigan, unfortunately, is out of internet, and so they eat it all up. It was fine, it was for a good service.
We are on hour 3 now of us recording together in the trade deadline. We have sucked every bit of streaming capacity from the Castellani household. I think it's let's just come out of the Dodgers. But whatever Chris said was fucking smart. I know that.
I disagree with all of it though, Carl. So that's fine.
You know what? The biggest thing he said that I hated was
the Nazi stuff was a bit much, Chris.
Yeah, please, dude. Cool with the Dodgers.
Yeah, dial it back. It's a baseball show. Relax.
The AL West is to me what I want baseball to be, where you've got 3 competitive teams. You've got a really talented team in there, and then there's always space for somebody to rebuild in a division. I really like the balance the AL West has. I like the competition that they had. They're so competitive that the Rangers traded for Max Scherzer and the Astros went and got Justin Verlander. Like, that's how competitive it is. That's different.
It's really different because we're not seeing that with any other divisions or any other teams, right? I feel like the 2 teams are like, let's fucking go. We're both in Texas. The other 49 states kind of punted the deadline away. You're absolutely right, Carl. This West, and then also you have the Angels in there going and getting guys. So, like, as much as I think the Angels are stupid for doing that, at least they made for an interesting deadline. And then you have Seattle, who we did not talk about the entire show. We had heard rumors of Oscar Hernandez. I guess he's staying put. Other than Paul Sewald, no one really got moved that I can think of any real note. And they kind of just stayed in the path, they kind of did the same thing the Yankees did. Just kind of stood their ground, which I don't think is the best strategy. But I guess for the Angels' perspective, the fact that the Yankees, Red Sox, and Mariners all did nothing helps them. Because it helps them, because those are the 3 teams that are fighting for the wild card. The division's gone. Verlander and Scherzer sealed that. But now the wild card might be more open than I would have thought it was on July 23rd.
Fair. Yeah.
That's something we had talked about with the Mariners. It was like, how can they can get rid of some of their players and improve themselves in the long term without really compromising a run at that 6th spot, as we talk about with AL. Like, we're really talking about 2 wild card spots, because the Rangers and the Astros, and then your 2 division winners. So assuming the Rangers and the Astros don't have a complete collapse, well, I mean, there's going to be another wild card spot for someone coming out of the AL East. Obviously, it's going to be Tampa and Baltimore. So really, there's like 1 wild card spot available in the American League.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair.
So we're going to say the Mariners and the Blue Jays. That's who the Mariners are chasing, is what I'm saying. The teams that are after that 6th spot.
And the Angels are chasing those same teams, right? Because you have the Rays, or whatever, or Houston or Texas, like you said. And then you have even the Yankees and Red Sox are in the mix. That last wild card spot could be a lot of fun to watch these last 2 months. I know, Carl, you're up against it. We've been doing this for a while. Any other last notes you think we should cover as a group here?
It'll be interesting to see what happens with this NL Central because, the Cubs made enough moves to improve enough to compete equally, I think, against the Brewers and the Reds. So I'm interested to see that those three teams in September should be a good mix for a division champion. I think the Guardians and the Twins will compete against each other down the stretch for this. It won't be exciting because both teams are sad. They're very sad. But the Central gets overlooked, and that's where my head's at coming out of the trade deadline. I think the NL Central can be very interesting down the stretch.
Well, the AL Central, I don't know if you know, Carl, but the AL Central kept Eduardo Rodriguez and the Tigers, so that's something to watch.
Okay, Solana, you doing okay?
Fine. I'm doing good. I'm feeling great. I'm going to be all right. Yeah.
This is Barstool Baseball. This is our quick trade deadline recap show. We want to put our reactions together as quick as we can. We also have a 2-hour, 20-minute stream that's up on YouTube as we go through each and every trade as it's announced, winners, losers, very much in depth. That can only be found on YouTube. This is available wherever you guys get your podcast. While you're here, do us a favor, please subscribe. We're out here grinding. We're very much excited for the last 60 days of the baseball season. These are going to be some great fucking playoffs. Boys, thank you for giving everyone your trade deadline afternoon.
That was a blast. That was, even though the deadline was kind of a bit of a deadline, that was about as much fun as we had doing it. I would do this every year as long as we could do it. I loved it.
It made what happened to my Tigers a lot more tolerable. So yeah, that's true.
We get stronger every day, guys. This is Barstool Baseball. Subscribe or miss out. We'll see you guys next time.